What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, you can see my TV 175 is all torn apart right now. I actually had to order some extra parts for the engine, so once those get in, then I can continue this build. But in the meantime, rather than waste time, I'm gonna go ahead and continue my Rally 200 build, starting with the engine rebuild. Okay, as you can see, I have the case sitting right here. It's all nice and cleaned up and polished. I went ahead and replaced the engine bushings here and back here. These are the original ones here. They're extremely hard, so I'm pretty sure these new bushings will help with the vibration. So along with this thing, I'm going to be upgrading the crank, cylinder, short forth, new bearings, gasket seals, of course. This thing's similar to the P200 motor with some very slight differences, and I'll show you what those are. But if you guys have seen any of the P200 rebuild videos, like I said, it's very, very similar. But I figured I'd do one specifically for the Rally 200. All right, so you guys ready? Let's get to it. First thing I'll do is install the main crank bearing, which is this guy right here. Okay, I'm gonna heat up the case first, and hopefully it'll just drop right in. After that, I'll put in the snap ring, and then on the other side, I'm gonna tighten those two retainers, as you'll see in a second. All right, nice and easy. So on the snap ring, there's a smooth side, and there's a rounded side, and then there's a side that's not rounded. So they say that the side that's not rounded should face outward. That way, it's less likely chance the snap ring will pop out. But honestly, I don't think there's that much movement in here or vibration. So if you put it either way, I think it's fine. Never had an issue with it, but that is supposedly the rule of thumb when it comes to snap rings. I have the motor flipped over now. You see these two retaining paws, or whatever you call these things. I'm gonna go ahead and snug them up, and that should be good, because you're actually pushing the bearing back over against the snap ring on this side. So you want to overdo it and bend the snap ring, and there'll be a high chance of that popping out later on. So once it's nice and snug, we're gonna go ahead and hammer the little tabs here into the nut, and that way it won't back out. And you should be good there. All right, there you go. It's nice and locked in place, and now they won't back out. All right, I got the crank seal right here. I'll put some 2-stroke oil on the lip here before I install it. That way it can help with the installation. You put this guy in, make sure the spring is pointing in towards you, or in towards the crank. All right, that feels about even. Should be good to go. Next up, I have the rear hub bearing, or output shaft bearing. Heat that up. Just like that. We're gonna snap ring next. Hear that snap? It's good to go. Okay, next up, I will be rebuilding this cush drive. First thing you gotta do is remove this snap ring right here. All right, knock the bearing out and the shaft out. All right, so you need to drill out all these rivets here. You can't simply just grind the heads off and it'll fall right out, because when they hammer these in the factory, the pin actually expands inside the gear here. So you have to drill them out at least halfway through before you can actually get the rivet out. Okay, I'm using a brand new 1/8" drill bit. Get yourself a brand new bit, because trying to drill these things out with a dull bit will drive you crazy. All right, so go ahead and drill these out. I got all the rivets drilled out. Take the covers off. Bottom one already fell off. doesn't look like any of the springs are broken on this thing, but you gotta remember this thing is still over 40 years old. So it's a good idea to go ahead and rebuild this thing while you have it out of the engine case. Okay, I got the gear separated from the Christmas tree, got all the springs removed. So this guy goes on here a certain way. You can't go like this, has to go like this. I believe it's this side is more bevel in the gear, so that's going to face that way along with the tree, and this side's more of a just a sharp edge. And also when you put it together, if you have it on the wrong way, the bottom of this Christmas tree protrudes out past the gear, so you can't really put the cover on properly. Brand new push drive rebuild kit right here. Comes with the 2 covers and springs and all the rivets. All right, get yourself a pair of channel locks like these. Help with the installation of the springs. So the little one goes inside the big spring, just like this, and then the whole setup goes in between each of these openings on the push drive. So you need these to compress the springs to get them into the openings. Okay, I've got all the springs installed in the push drive. Okay, you're going to do the flat plate on this side, and you see how it's countersunk here on the holes. Make sure the countersunk side of the plate is facing outward. Okay, because the rivet sits in there like this, like that. Okay, so you want to try to get them all started before you hammer them down, because once you hammer one down, the plates stop moving. So if one of them is not lined up properly or 100%, you're gonna have a hard time getting all the rivets in. Okay, so like I said, it's good. Just there's a jig for this thing. I still don't have it. I've been doing it without it. I've been okay. I'm sure you doing it at home, you probably won't have it either. So typically all I do is just put it up against my vise here. You start tapping on each rivet. All right, so I've got all the rivets in the gear through both covers, and the head's mushroomed a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and flatten all these out. If you don't flatten these out, when this thing spins in the case, these little rivets will hit the main bearing. Okay, so you gotta flatten these out. Okay, just like the way it was when how it came from the factory. There's a reason why they're all flattened. Okay, you see I've got all the rivets all hammered down on the push drive. So this guy's nice and rebuilt. So next thing I'm gonna do is reinstall the bearing and the shaft. Make sure you put the shaft back in first before you install the bearing. Because once you have the bearing in there, you can't install the shaft, obviously. So put that in there, just let it hang down. And we're going to tap the bearing in. Like that. Snap ring. That's it. Your rebuilt push drive. All right, now I have this thing rebuilt. We'll go ahead and install it in the case. First thing you do is pull the shaft out all the way like this, position it into the case like around here, push the shaft back in through that hole in the case. All right, so don't push it all the way. You have to install some needle bearings right here before you do. All right, I have brand new needle bearings right here. I believe it takes like 21 of them to fill that entire area. Put some grease here, that way they kind of hold the bearings in place while you do it one by one. Otherwise they'll just keep falling out on you. So be patient, install one by one until this opening here is completely full of bearings. All right, so 23 in the pack, I believe, and there's 4 left, so I guess it takes 19. But you can see every gap is filled with the needle bearing, so you should be good there. And push it in all the way. All right, I got the shaft knocked into place. I'm gonna put this thing in. Make sure again this tab is lined up with the slot on that shaft. That way it goes all the way in like that. Put this other part on like this, and then the locking nut right here. Okay. Torque spec on this 30 Newton meters. 30 Newton meters. Make sure it spins freely like that. Okay, there you go. Now the nut won't back out. Let's go ahead and work on the transmission. All right, so next thing is replace the cruciform inside the transmission. You're going to start by removing the snap ring on the top here, pulling off the shoulder washer, gears, this one's a little worn out, so we're going to be replacing it. Okay, now that I got all the gears removed, to remove the shaft here and the cruciform, you need to stick a screwdriver through like this, turn this shaft clockwise to get it off like this. A little washer down here, make sure you don't lose it. After that, you'll lift up on the cruciform and spin it to remove it. Like this, okay? All right, I have a brand new cruciform right here. Before I install it into the output shaft, I want to pre-thread this little shaft thingy here into it, make sure the threads are okay. So, all right, good to go. Okay, so to install this cruciform or shift across, whatever you want to call this thing, put it in with the rounded sides horizontal like this, and the not rounded sides vertical. That way you can actually flip it like this once it's in the output shaft. Okay, on the later output shafts, there's a little hole cut in where you can actually flip it either way you put it in. But then again, the later shifter crosses don't have the rounded parts. So put that in there, flip it so that this flat side's facing up. Okay, this little protruding side is facing down. Okay, so before I install this thing, I'm going to put some red Loctite on it, like that. Make sure the washer's still there on the bottom. Put that in, and again, to tighten it, it is counterclockwise. All right. You don't have to kill it, just make it tight, like that, okay? Good to go. And we'll be upgrading the fourth gear to a shorter fourth gear. I don't know if it's actually an upgrade or not, but this shortens the fourth gear because if you've ridden a vintage Vespa before, you'll notice that the space between third and fourth gear is really, really long, and this shortens it up, makes it a little more enjoyable to ride. Unfortunately, it does take away a little bit from the top speed. Not much, but I think it's worth it. So definitely looking into something like this if you're going to do this job. To install these gears, the rule of thumb is always the taller side is going to face up. Okay, so this is fourth gear. There's a little tiny lip right here and makes it the taller side, so that's going to face up. Okay, so face that up. Like that. Third gear, again, taller side face up. Second gear, taller side face up. First gear. So first gear doesn't have a taller side that you can tell, but if you look in there, you see that there's teeth in here. There's 4 teeth right there, okay? The side that doesn't have a space, like this side, is going to face up, okay? The space side face down. Between this area here and then that area on second gear is your neutral position, okay? So again, no space, face up. There's usually a little mark here from the factory. It's usually a little brighter. You can actually tell it's still there, just I guess old. So, so that's how you install the gears on the output shaft. Okay, so that this is all the way up. So I'll lock in first gear. All the other gear still spins, and then in between first and second, of course, is neutral. All right, so that's good to go. You're gonna reinstall the shoulder washer right here, and the snap ring. There you go, that's it. Okay, so now I want to measure the tolerances between the actual gear and the shoulder washer. Okay, so the spec is going to be between 0.15 to 0.40 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to put 0.15s in there first, and I can feel it dragging a little bit, so which is good. Obviously, anything under 0.15 will fit in there, but you're supposed to feel a little drag when you place the feeler gauges in there. So 0.15 is good. Now I'm going to measure the max tolerance, which is going to be 0.40 right here. Okay, now if I stick these in there and they don't fit, that means the gap is going to be less than 0.40, which is good. Okay, but yeah, this won't even fit in there. So I know that gap is not too big, okay, or too tight, because 0.15 is going there and they still touch a little bit, so we're good to go. All right, hopefully that makes sense, but that's how you check the tolerances. Okay, so for this deal, I am actually going to take this apart again, because I'm going to show you guys an easier way of installing this transmission into the case. In my other videos, I've always done this assembled, and I would put this output shaft into the case and kind of mesh up all the gears on the Christmas tree along with the transmission, which is a little difficult and tricky at times. So this time, I'm going to install this bare output shaft into the case first, and then stack the gears in there one at a time. Okay, this is something I learned from watching those crazy guys in Indonesia build bikes, and I watched the guy do this, and I'm like, wait a second, why don't I do it that way? It's so much easier. So it's kind of one of those things that you don't think about until somebody else shows you how to do it, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna do with this one. So we're gonna go and pull the output shaft into the case with my crank pulley here and the right adapter. Okay, I have the output shaft installed in the case. Make sure it's bottomed out over here. It looks like it. Again, I'm gonna stack the gears in one at a time with the higher side facing up. So get this guy. Ugh. There you go, like that. Install the shoulder washer and snap ring. Okay, that's it. Much easier than trying to line everything up all in one piece. Okay, so next up we'll go ahead and install the crank. Okay, so the crank I'm gonna be using on this build is this brand new Mazzy crank, a long stroke crank made for a P200. Difference is the fly side, I guess shaft here is different between the P200 and the Rally 200. On the Rally 200 cranks, they have a little space for the little collar that triggers the ignition. I'm not going to use the Femsatronic ignition because I heard those are junk. I'm going to be using a vape kit on this build, so which is why I'm using a P200 crank. Okay. They do have vape kits available for the Rally 200 cranks now. So if you wanted to upgrade your ignition from the Femsatronic to that, make sure you can look into that. I think they're available through SIP. But like I said, this build, we're going to be using a P200 crank and a Rally 200 case. Okay. Now, when you do that, you have to order the Rally 200 bearing. Okay. Because on the P200, the bearing on the fly side is very small. This one right here. Okay. As you can see on the fly side here, the opening here is very big. So if you do this build, use a P200 crank, you need the Rally 200 bearing, okay? So this is similar to a small frame. The two pieces are separate. You're gonna have to install this on there first, and then install this into the case there. And then once you have the crank installed in the case, you can just simply slip this other fly side half on, and it should be nice and easy for you. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is heat this up, and then we're gonna install this onto the crank. Okay, so I have all my tools necessary for this job. So I have my 1mm spacer here. Okay, I have my wedge in between the webs here. This is just so that if you need to kind of tap this race on, you don't bend the webs here. And I also have the tool for that in case I have to do that. But we're going to start by heating this guy up with a heat gun and not a torch, because if you get that thing too hot, it might weaken the metal, and then it might break. So yeah, you only use a heat gun on this guy right here. So let me go ahead and heat that up, and hopefully it'll just drop right on. And of course not. So I'll tap it. Okay, good. Okay, that race is installed. Let's work on this one here. Okay, just like that. Okay, so before I join the two case halves together, I need to install this output shaft bearing back here. I'm just gonna heat the case up a little bit and slowly tap it in. Next thing is to replace this O-ring for the kickstart quadrant. Scrape off whatever excess stuff is in there. Got the O-ring right here. Put it in there. Make sure it goes into that little notch inside the opening here. Like that. Okay. Flip it back around. I'm going to install these little rubber bumpers for the quadrant with some oil here to help with the installation. So these slide in these little openings right here. Okay, that's one. Okay, that took a little bit of effort, but I got it. All right, so now I have a quick start quadrant here. I'll put some grease on this shaft all the way around, because you don't want to insert this and catch the O-ring you just installed. Once it's all greased up, insert it slowly, just like that, so it doesn't catch the O-ring like I said. There you go. Next thing is a spring right here. Pin right there goes in the hole right there. You can spin the hook here until it goes in the notch on the quadrant. So sometimes you can do it by hand, but right now it's kind of slippery. So get yourself a nice channel locks like this. That way you can just spin it like that. Okay. Before I connect the two case halves together, I'm going to go ahead and install the kickstart lever, because you need to sometimes rotate the quadrant around to get the case halves to line up. So it's a good idea to do that. Install this guy. Well, he goes on one way. See those teeth matched up with the teeth on the quadrant. After that, just tighten it down. You should be good to go. Okay, good to go. Everything installed, ready to go back together. All right, we're going to install the crank. Before I do that, I'm going to put some 2-stroke oil in this seal surface here. Make sure it's nice and lubricated. That way I don't pop that spring out of that seal right there. So both on the crank and on the seal. Make sure it's nice and slick, just so it doesn't catch anything when you install this thing. All right, so I'll place it in there like this. Okay, this side I have my crank puller ready to go with the insert or the adapter. I'll pull it in the rest of the way. Now when you're doing this, make sure the rod doesn't get stuck like down here, you know, that way you don't bend the rod. All right, so make sure you keep that thing there, and you should be okay. Okay, just stopped. All right, I have the crank fully installed into the bearing. I'm gonna look in there and make sure the spring didn't pop off the seal. And it looks like it's okay. All right, good to go. Okay, so before we join the two case halves together, we're gonna have to install a gasket. So I like to coat my gaskets in grease. Some people use gasket maker. I find that if I do have to take apart the engine afterwards, the gasket maker leaves a big old mess. Grease doesn't, and grease also seals the case pretty good. So that's how I do it. You can use whatever you want. So let me go and coat this thing real quick, and then we'll put it on the case. Okay, you can see I got the gasket all coated with grease. So we are ready to join the case halves together. Make sure everything's good there. Bearing's good. So when you go and rebuild the motor, it's a good idea to replace the kickstart gear, which is this guy right here. All right, this is a brand new one. I'll go ahead and put that right there. And on the Rally 200 cases, he uses this kind of spring rather than the regular coil spring that kind of sits there in an opening like the P200. So that's another difference between a P200 and a Rally 200. So we'll go ahead and join the two case halves together now. All right, case halves are joined together. Test the kickstart spring, return. Everything seems to be okay, so you can go and bolt everything together. All right, so for this build, I'm going to use brand new lock washers and washers. So the size of these studs here are M7 by 10. All right, if you're wondering where to get this kind of hardware, Lowe's or Home Depot actually carries it. They sell it in a quantity of 5, I think, in a bag, so you're gonna get a couple bags in order to do this job. Okay, so now I have all the hardware installed in the cases. The nuts all snugged up. I'm gonna go ahead and torque this thing down. Spec is between 13 and 15 Newton meters, so I'll just do 14 on all of them, and then we should be good to go. Okay, I went and torqued down all the hardware to 14 Newton meters. I also went ahead and reinstalled the case studs. These just thread all the way down till it stops. Those are good to go. Before I move forward, I'm gonna go ahead and put the flash size seal on. That way no dirt or dust gonna get into that brand new bearing. All right, so the Rally 200 seal is different from the P200. So if you do this build, you need to order the Rally 200 seal. All right, it's bigger. So before I install this guy, I'm gonna put some 2-stroke oil on the lip here. Also some on the seal surface on the crank. Good to go. So hopefully I can just push this on without too much effort. Okay, so I actually had to help it out a little bit with this little pry tool. Just so I wouldn't pop the spring out of the seal. So I got it around the crank. Everything seems to be flush, looking pretty good. Everything still spins pretty good. So, all right, now we can go ahead and figure out the squish. Okay, so for this build, I'm using the SIP's brand new aluminum cylinder. I think the differences are there's more ports in the cylinder. Actually it feels pretty good, so I don't think I need to chamfer the ports. Everything seems to be already done for me. So yeah, it's just a little bit better than stock, and it's also aluminum. All right, with the kit came a brand new piston. I'll go ahead and install the circlip on one side. And we're gonna go ahead and install the piston onto the crank, but I'm not gonna put any rings in it because I'm checking the squish. Okay, so make sure this guy's all the way in the seat. You don't want that guy popping out when the engine's revving up. It'll destroy some stuff. So that's in there. I have the brand new needle bearing, a wrist pin bearing that came with the crank. I'll put some 2-stroke oil on that before I install it. This is to help with startup, because these things are completely dry when you first start them up. So put that there. Now on this brand new piston is an arrow. The arrow on these pistons always points towards the exhaust. Okay, on the P200 the exhaust points down, so arrow will point down. All right, so I'll go ahead and put the piston on. Hopefully, I can easily slip it through that wrist pin bearing. If not, I'll have to grab my tool. It's pretty easy. Okay, so now I'll put the circlip on this side, just so I don't forget about it. Again, make sure it's in the groove on the piston. You don't want this thing popping out. There you go. Well, the motor's revving up. Okay, done. So since I did a long stroke crank, you need a packer to take up the extra stroke. Okay, this is a 1.5 millimeter packer compared to the factory one. That's really, really thin. Okay, so I need to install this guy and then bolt the cylinder head on, and then make sure the piston doesn't hit the cylinder head. Okay, I guess the studs are not perfectly aligned. It gave me a little trouble, but it's on there now. Let's go ahead and install the cylinder, this guy. Before I do that, I'm gonna coat the cylinder walls with some 2-stroke oil because this thing's completely dry. I don't want to scratch up too many things. It's good to go. Now you notice I didn't put the rings on the piston because I'm only checking for the squish. I don't want to have to keep messing with the piston rings into the cylinder. So slip that guy on real quick. Everything looks pretty good so far. Everything's still moving freely. All right, good. Okay, so to check your squish, you need to place a little piece of solder in this opening right here. And then you bolt the cylinder head on. And after that, you have to turn the crank until the piston hits top dead center. And hopefully it rolls over. If not, then the switch is way too small. And you have to do some more spacing as far as the packer. I'm not sure if there's a P200 head gasket. I know the stock one doesn't use it. But hopefully the 1.5 millimeter packer I'm using is good enough. So we're going to find out right now. So I'm using this really thick solder from Radio Shack. I know it's not available anymore, but yeah, this stuff is like 1.65 millimeters, 1.5 millimeters thick, I think. So you want to try to keep the squish around 1 millimeter, I think is what the spec is. So I'm gonna cut a little piece like this, place it in here. Can't get this guy to stay, but let me see. There you go. Have it in there like that. Slap the cylinder head on without dropping that thing. So that. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and torque the head down, 17 Newton meters. So I have brand new hardware for that. Let me go ahead and install that stuff. Torque it down, and we'll turn the crank, and hopefully the tolerance is okay. Okay, we got the hardware snugged on there. It's also brand new hardware I'm using. If you want to know the spec, it's M8 by 1.25. New washers and lock washers, and I'm going to torque it down 17 Newton meters. So that's one. Let's do the crisscross pattern. Good to go. So now that I have everything all torqued down, I'm going to go ahead and spin the crank and make it go full, all the way top dead center and come back down. So that way it'll smush the solder I have in there. And then after that, we can open it back up and see what kind of tolerance we have. I have the clutch temporarily put in there just so I can spin the crank. So let me see here. Wow. The gap is way too big. It's not doing anything. Huh, that's weird. I'm wondering if a 1.5 millimeter packer is too thick. I'm guessing that's what it is. I'm gonna remove that packer. I'm gonna try the stock gasket and see what kind of swish we get. All right, so I removed the packer and I put the stock base gasket in there. So I have my solder once again sitting right there. I'll go ahead and bolt the cylinder head back on and we'll try it again. Okay, got it all torqued down. Let's try it again. I see a piece of solder. Okay, now I felt it roll over. Okay, now we're good. I'll take this thing off and try it again. All right, so I can see it only touched in this little spot right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure that and see what we get. 1.3. Minimum tolerance is supposed to be 1.0. So 1.3 is perfectly fine. Plenty of clearance in there. People try to get it tighter just so I guess better performance, but At this point, not much I can do to it to make it smaller, because I'll have to mill the head down or the cylinder. So I'm not going to go through all that. So I'm just going to run it with a 1.3 millimeter squish and see what it does. Now that I have the squish figured out, I went ahead and pulled the cylinder off, as you can see. Also, I checked the position of the circlips, and I made sure on the circlip, there's one side is rounded and the other side's sharp. Okay, make sure the sharp side's facing out. Okay, if you have the sharp side facing out, it's harder for it to pop out rather than having the round side facing out. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So the next thing I'm gonna do is check the piston rings. Make sure the gap's okay before I put them on the piston. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is check the piston ring gap. Okay, so you take the cylinder and you place the ring about halfway, well, not halfway, maybe that far down on the cylinder. And the math for this thing is gonna be the bore size, which is 66 millimeters for a P200, times 0.004. Okay, so we have 66 times 0.004 equals 0.264. Okay, so the gap should be 0.264 millimeters. I don't exactly have a 0.264 millimeter feeler gauge, so I'm just gonna use the closest one, 0.25. All right, so I'm gonna place this feeler gauge in the gap here, and it seems to fit just fine. Okay, so to install the piston rings onto the piston, usually the rule of thumb is the writings on the piston ring is supposed to face up. So the writings there, and on this one, you can see the gap has a little like a half circle when you push them together. And if you look on the piston, there's a pin right there. So the half circle should be, the flat side should be facing down, half circle should be facing up, which is the lettering. I hope that makes sense. The lettering is facing up. And yeah, we're gonna go and stretch these guys and install them onto the piston. Put some little surface scratches on the piston, but that's okay. All right, now that I have the piston rings on the piston, before I slide the cylinder on, I'm going to apply some Yamaha 4 on the base gasket. It's always a good idea to do that. That way it seals properly. I have done motors where I didn't do that and it leaked right at the base. So get yourself a bottle of Yamaha 4, which is what I'm currently using. Honda Bond, there's other stuff you can use too, but Yamaha 4 I've had pretty good luck with. So, and that is how much I have left. So you can see how much I use it. And I've never had a problem with it. So I'm going to do the same thing on this motor. All right, I have the base gasket covered in Yamaha Bond 4, both sides. So we're going to go and install the cylinder. Let's see here. So the gaps on the piston rings need to match up with the pins that are coming out of the piston. So if I can get this guy on there without too much effort. Okay, I think I got it. All right, now that I got the cylinder onto the piston, I'm going to apply some Yamaha 4 on the base of the cylinder head as well. Some people say you don't need this, but I don't think it hurts. I always do it. I know it doesn't. There's no sealant from the factory, no gasket from the factory either. So to be honest, I don't know how sealed those factory Piaggio engines are, but I do this just because it makes me feel better. So up to you whether you want to do it or not. All right, I got a thin layer of Yamaha 4 in the cylinder head. I'll go ahead and slip this on. I'll go ahead and put the hardware on, torque down to 17 Newton meters, and this guy should be done. All right, now that I have everything all torqued down, I'm gonna function check the motor. This is how the clutch temporarily pressed in here. Move the little arm here all the way out like that. This little pawl here goes into that notch on the shaft. that lined up, and then just push it on like that. There's new hardware. Oh, and I did place a gasket in between, and I coated that with grease on both sides, so make sure you do the same thing. All right, good to go. Okay, now let's get the clutch installed. So before I install the clutch, I'm gonna go ahead and install all the oil injection parts, starting with this drive gear here. Push that in just like this. Okay, I believe there's a thrust washer on the outside here. And it's a good idea to cover up these little holes here if you're going to do work around here, because if you drop something in those holes, you have to open the case up again, and that would suck. So, like I said, the gear first, thrust washer there, and then the circlip after that. I went ahead and put a new Woodruff key onto the crank right there, and then the drive gear that goes on the crank. This is different from the P200. Both sides have a little taper or a little bevel, so it doesn't matter which way you put it in. On the P200 side, one side's flat, the other side is kind of tapered. So if you see one of those, then the taper side goes inward. So install that guy, push it in just like that. Okay, good to go. I have the actual oil pump shaft here. There's an O-ring on the bottom here I'm going to replace. New O-ring that comes with the O-ring kit. Since you have this thing out, go ahead and put some oil here. Once you have it all situated, push down here. Just like that. So when the crank spins, it spins this gear, and then that spins the shaft, and that's what drives the oil pump. Okay. All right. So for this build, I'm using a brand new Costa style SIP clutch. I think this is a sport clutch. I used it on the Fireball build I did a while back, and I really liked it. So I'm using the same one on this build. So I'm gonna take this apart, make sure the corks are soaked in oil before I install it. Okay, so I have my compressor here. These things look dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and soak them in oil for a little while, and then I'll reassemble it again once that's all done. Actually, now that I really look at it, it looks like they are soaked in oil, but it doesn't hurt to put more. All right, re-soak the clutch and take it apart. You can go ahead and install it on the motor. Notch here on the clutch lines up with the Woodruff key there, so then push it in. Okay, there you go. Now we're on to the debate of what clutch nut to use with the Costa clutch. This is an actual Costa clutch right here. It's pinched on the end, and you just use a wavy washer behind it, I'm guessing. Or they have this version. It's a serrated lock nut and the actual nut itself. Or there's the old P200 version, which is a castellated washer with a castellated nut. Okay, I've used all three. I've never seen a clutch pop off before, but I'm sure somebody that knows more than I do will explain to you why to use whatever one that they recommend. But like I said, I've used all three, never had an issue. So Totally up to you what you want to use, but I have this one. I'm going to use this one. All right. Locking washer first, and then the nut after that. Torque spec on this guy is 40 Newton meters. Okay, perfect. You can see I have my clutch holding tool on the top here to hold the clutch while I tighten it. All right, before I install the clutch cover, I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble it. I took it all apart to clean it, so install the vent first. Okay. Next up, I'm gonna replace the O-ring on the shaft right here. There you go. Place the pawl inside the clutch cover like that. The spring will go some like this. Put some grease on the shaft. All right, I'm gonna spin this spring and move it up like that, okay? Brand new O-ring that goes around this thing. I'm also installing a brand new plunger. Put a glob of grease in this opening here where you do it. There you go, all done. All right, before I install the clutch cover, I need to install the pressure plate. So just line up the flat spot here on the pressure plate along with the flat spot on the clutch, and then push down a little spring clip thing that's in there. Like that. I'm gonna place the clutch on there, or a clutch cover on. All right, I'm gonna find some hardware. I'm gonna bolt that thing on and call it a day. All right, I got brand new M610 hardware with the wavy washers. Bolt this guy on real quick, and then this part's gonna be done. I believe these bolts are going to be 8 Newton meters, but I'm just going to snug them up and call it a day. All right, good to go. Okay, everything still works. All right, I have the rear brake cam. I'm going to go ahead and replace the 2 O-rings that go here and here. Okay, I'm going to grease this guy up. All right, got the cam all greased up. Go ahead and insert this in this opening back here slowly, so you'll rip the O-rings like that. Rip off any excess grease. You don't want that stuff getting in the brake pads. All right. I pushed it in a little too far. I actually need to install this arm and the spring. And honestly, I don't remember how it goes. I think it's like this. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so this goes here like this. Spring goes like this. Push the rest of the way in. Hopefully you saw what I did. Under here there's a cotter pin needs to go on. So I'm gonna go ahead and install that and show you what it looks like when it's all done. We'll bend them around. The arm seems to be rebounding correctly, so we're good to go. All right, I got the motor flip back around. O-ring kit comes with this O-ring that goes here. Also this O-ring comes together, but you're supposed to cut the big one off. Big one goes here. Little one goes here. I have my freshly powder coated rear brake plate. I'm going to throw this on real quick. Just like that. I always use brand new screws for here. Okay, you can get them at your local hardware store. These are original ones. And I find that once you remove them, you try to reinstall them, it's very likely the heads will snap. So try not to reuse those. It's gonna it's gonna cause you a lot of headache if they do break. All right, so I got new sheet metal screws from my local hardware store that fit just fine. That's what I'm gonna use. Brand new brake pads to the rear. Install it in sort of in one piece. Makes it a lot easier. Now the bottom one situated first. I'm gonna flip the top one in place. Just have to mess with it. Like that. Now for the rear seal, I put some oil on the lip here. Okay. All right, we got a nice powder coated rear hub. Not sure what happened to this plug. I don't know if the powder coater took it off and forgot to put it back on. It looks like I have to get another one. Oh well. All right, I'm going to put some oil in the back here just so it can slip into the seal easily. Don't put too much. Make sure it doesn't get on the surface in here. This is where the brakes grab onto the hub. Okay. That's that. The spacer goes on, and then the castle nut. Okay, I'm not going to tighten that. I'm going to wait till I can get it on the bike and all that, and I can torque it down properly, and then I'll put a cotter pin through it. For the car box, you can see I took the oil pump off and cleaned everything all up. So now it's ready to be reinstalled. Oil pump itself, this gear was actually seized. So I had to take all that apart, clean all the crud off, and then put it all back together. It's not too hard, but you do have to pay attention. There's a bunch of little pieces in there. All right, so this is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this guy with a new gasket. I'm going to coat the gasket in grease before I do so. And there's just 3 flathead screws that hold it in place. All right, got the thing screwed back on. I put the little rubber hose protector in there because once you get this car box on the motor, this thing is very hard to install. So you got to do it now. All right, looks like this when it's fully installed. So I'm going to find the gasket that goes here, and then I'll go ahead and bolt it onto the case. All right, so I have a new car box gasket placed on the case. All right, when you work around this area, make sure the crank is positioned where this opening is closed, okay, just in case you drop anything in there. It's going to be very, very hard for you to get it out. All right, so gasket's on there. The carb secures with 1 screw down the middle. After that, you can do the carb gasket on and then bolt the carb on to hold it all together. Okay, that's it. All right, I'm back on this side of the motor. When I was bolting the case together, I forgot to put it on this cable bracket. All right, so this goes right there. Kind of keeps the cables away from the hot exhaust. All right, so make sure you put that back on. All right, this is what it looks like when it's all done. For this build, I'm using a vape kit. This is the road kit, which means the ignition point is static. It doesn't move around at different RPMs. So I'm going to set it at 23 degrees before top dead center, which is what the stock timing should be on a P200. I'm not sure if you can advance it or not, but that's what I'm going to set it at. That way it don't blow up. So the kit itself comes with almost everything you need. The bracket to hold the CDI onto the case is separate though. You need to order that. You need to buy that separately, okay? Which is this thing right here. All right, the other thing you're gonna need is a spark plug boot. All right, that's also separate. So, yeah, I'm gonna start by assembling the stator plate, and then we can bolt it on the motor. All right, so I went ahead and mounted the stator onto the plate, and the plate onto the case. Ran the wire through the channel opening in the case right here. It comes out here. Make sure you use some Loctite on these 3 screws to hold that in place. Don't use Loctite on these because you need to be able to loosen it up to adjust it later on. Okay, so the CDI bracket, I'm not sure if it goes like this or it's supposed to point down. I won't know until I actually have it in the bike to make sure it clears the side panel. So for now, I just have it like this. I can move it around if I have to. I went ahead and made the connections. You're gonna need to ground it here on this one of these bolts here going through the case, and then of course connect the 2 wires coming from the stator plate to the CDI. This wire here is the cutoff switch, so this will go all the way up to the handlebar switch later on. This is power to the bike. Obviously not in the bike right now, so I don't need all that. So right now I have the flywheel right here. I'm going to go ahead and temporarily install this, and I'm going to put the actual fan on the flywheel. That way I can set the timing. So there was a Woodruff key in there, the notch in the flywheel. Make sure that lines up. Good to go. Locking washer, and then the flywheel nut. The kit does not come with the locking washer or the flywheel nut, so make sure you order one of those. Okay, that's good to go. I also installed the wiring to the CDI. Comes with this wire right here. You kind of just spin it on. There's a screw in the cap here and a screw in the CDI. Spin the wire in until it stops. Make sure you put the rubber boots on. So it doesn't come with a cap. Make sure you order a cap as well. I use the NGK resistor ones because I use non-resistor plugs. Okay, and make sure your plugs are the ones that you can remove the little tip off, because the NGK uses the smaller tip. All right, so this is good to go. Right now, if I was to spin the motor with a drill, I should get spark. It's all hooked up right now, so let's take a look. All right, I have my drill hooked up to a socket, so now I'm just going to spin the motor, see if we get spark. Yep, plenty of spark. So the next step is I'm going to mount the fan on there, and that way I can have something to put markings on the case and on the fan. That way I can actually see where it is when I flash the motor. I just put 2 screws in for now. I do need to torque these down properly later on, along with the flywheel nut. But right now, like I said, I'm just trying to set the timing, so I'm gonna mount the fan on there, onto the flywheel. Make my marks, check the timing, and then we should be good to go. Okay, to check the timing, first thing we need to do is install a piston stop. Okay, it just screws into where the spark plug is. Okay, we're gonna spin the motor counterclockwise all the way till it stops right there. Okay, after that we need to install this little gauge holder thing. I think this is the right thread pitch. There's a bolt in there to lock it in place, so let's go ahead and install that. Keep the motor locked at counterclockwise. That's good. So keep this bracket as level as you can. Tighten the center bolt. All right, that's locked in place. Put the gauge on, turn it on, zero the gauge. Oh, zero the gauge. Okay. All right, with the gauge zeroed, you want to spin the flywheel clockwise until it stops. 70, let's call it 73.6. Okay. 73.6. divided by 2 equals 36.8. All right, so what we want to do next is remove the piston stop. Keep spinning this guy until it hits 36.8. Right there. The piston is at top dead center right now. That's the highest point of the stroke before the piston starts going back down. All right, so from here, what we want to do is put 2 marks, one on the flywheel and one on the case. Okay, so let's just trying to put it somewhere you can see. Maybe like right, yeah. Use one of the fins here, and then on the case here, labeled top dead center. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. 36.8. So with the gauge at 36.8, which is top dead center, zero the gauge. You're going to back this up 23 degrees. Put another mark right here. All right, hopefully you can see what I'm trying to do here. So there's a mark on the fin right here, and there's a mark there on the case. That's top dead center. I made another mark back here, which is 23 degrees before top dead center. So when I flash the motor, and say these 2 marks line up, the mark on the flywheel and the mark on the case line up, that means I know the timing is set correctly. I don't need to do anything else. Now, if I spin the motor and when the light flashes and it's forward or it's backwards, I'm gonna need to take the flywheel off, loosen the stator plate, move it backwards or forwards to correct it. Okay, so I'm gonna go and spin the motor and see what I get, and then make some adjustments if I have to. All right, I'm trying to do this so you can see, but I have my timing light hooked up. It's just one connection going to the spark plug wire, and it's battery powered. So I'm gonna go and spin the motor and see what we got. I don't know if you can see that, but the fin is kind of like there when I flash it compared to that mark there. So I'm gonna take the flywheel off, move the stator plate back maybe 3-4 degrees maybe, and hopefully those marks line up after, when I flash it again. I'll move the stator plate back a little bit and flash it again and see what we got. And now it's a little too far back, so I got to take the flywheel off again and do it again. All right, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's actually perfect now. When I flash the motor, the mark on the fin lines up with the mark on the case, so it's exactly what we want. Where'd that mark go? Right there. That mark lines up perfectly when I flash the motor. All right, as you can see, I got my flywheel holding tool on the case. I'm going to tighten the flywheel nut 60 Newton meters. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is tighten these little fan bolts on. The spec is between 12 and 14 Newton meters. There you have it, guys, a fully rebuilt Vespa Rally 200 motor. Okay, as you saw, it's really similar to the P200 with some minor differences, and I hope I covered them all for you. I don't think anybody actually has a Rally 200 build video on YouTube, so I figured I'd make one for you guys since I was doing this anyway. And I hope it'll help you guys out if you're lucky enough to have a Rally 200 to restore. Okay, but yeah, guys, I'm noticing that a lot of you guys that watch these videos are not subscribed. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if these videos are helping you. All right, let me know if I should keep making these videos or not, because they are a ton of work. Okay, so yeah, guys, again, if you enjoy these videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, I'll catch y'all next time.